A tale of two economies: profits soar, wages stagnate. This is a story that has been unfolding for decades, a narrative that has shaped the lives of millions of Americans. It's a tale of stark contrasts, where the glittering success of a few overshadows the struggles of the many. America, land of opportunity, home of the free, a place where dreams are supposed to come true, where hard work is meant to be rewarded. We've all heard these phrases before, but for many Americans, the reality doesn't quite match the rhetoric. The American dream seems more like a distant memory, a promise unfulfilled. Corporate profits are sky high, shattering records year after year. Companies are reporting unprecedented earnings, and the stock market is hitting new highs. Yet, wages for the average worker have barely budged in decades. Despite the booming economy, the benefits are not trickling down to the workforce. It's like living in a parallel universe where the economy is booming, but your paycheck is stuck in a time warp. The cost of living keeps rising, but your income remains the same. This isn't just a coincidence. It's not bad luck. It's a systemic issue, deeply rooted in the policies and practices of our economic system. This is the result of deliberate choices made by corporations, decisions made in boardrooms far removed from the everyday struggles of ordinary workers. Choices that prioritize enriching a select few at the expense of the many. Choices like stock buybacks, which inflate the value of shares and benefit executives and shareholders, but do little for the average employee. Now, I know what you're thinking. Stock buybacks? That sounds about as exciting as watching paint dry. But bear with me, because this seemingly dull topic has far-reaching implications. But trust me folks, this is important. Understanding stock buybacks is crucial to understanding the broader economic issues at play. Because behind this seemingly boring financial jargon lies a story of corporate greed, rigged rules, and a system that's failing ordinary Americans. So, buckle up! We're gonna peel back the layers and see how these practices are contributing to the widening gap between the rich and the poor. We're about to dive into the wacky world of stock buybacks and uncover how they're contributing to the growing chasm between the haves and the have-nots. It's a roller coaster ride of financial maneuvers that ultimately leaves the average worker behind. Get ready for some righteous anger, a dash of dark humor, and hopefully, a renewed sense of urgency to fight for a fairer economy. Because understanding these issues is the first step towards demanding change and ensuring that the economy works for everyone, not just the privileged few. Alright, let's break down this whole stock buyback thing. It's a concept that might seem a bit confusing at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty straightforward. Imagine a company bakes a giant pie representing its profits. This pie is essentially the money the company has made over a certain period. Instead of sharing the pie with the people who actually made it, the workers, the company decides to eat a big chunk of it themselves. This means they are keeping a significant portion of the profits for themselves. They do this by buying back their own shares from the stock market. Essentially, they are using their profits to purchase their own stock. Now you might be thinking, why the heck would a company buy its own stock? It seems counterintuitive, right? Good question. When a company buys back its shares, it reduces the number of shares available to the public. This reduction in supply can have a significant impact on the stock's value. This in turn artificially inflates the value of the remaining shares, making shareholders very happy. The fewer shares there are, the more valuable each one becomes. And who are these shareholders? Who benefits the most from this increase in stock value? Well, they're often wealthy individuals, CEOs, and institutional investors. These are the people who hold large amounts of stock and stand to gain the most. So in essence, stock buybacks are a way for companies to funnel their profits directly to the top, boosting their stock prices and lining the pockets of the already wealthy. This practice can create a significant disparity in wealth distribution within the company. It's like a giant game of Monopoly where the bank keeps giving money to the player with the most hotels, while everyone else struggles to afford even boardwalk. This analogy highlights the imbalance and unfairness that can result from stock buybacks, where the rich get richer and the workers who contribute to the company's success see little benefit. Now you might be wondering, is this even legal? Well, it wasn't always. Back in the good old days, think pre-Reagan era, stock buybacks were considered a form of market manipulation and were heavily restricted. But then came the 1980s, a decade marked by deregulation frenzy and a belief that greed is good. In 1982, the Reagan administration relaxed the rules on stock buybacks, opening the floodgates for this practice to explode. and explode it did. What was once a rare occurrence became the go-to strategy for corporations looking to boost their stock prices and reward their executives. This deregulation frenzy was like giving a bunch of sugar-crazed toddlers the keys to the candy store. It's no surprise that they went absolutely bonkers. And who's paying the price for this decades-long sugar rush? The American worker, of course. So, how exactly do stock buybacks hurt the average worker? Let's count the ways. Stock buybacks are when a company purchases its own shares from the marketplace, reducing the number of outstanding shares. This often leads to an increase in the stock price, benefiting shareholders. But what does this mean for the average worker? First, when companies spend billions on buybacks, they have less money to invest in things like raising wages, improving benefits, or creating new jobs. This means that the potential for salary increases, better healthcare, and more job opportunities is significantly reduced. It's a simple matter of priorities, folks. Corporations have a finite amount of resources, and how they choose to allocate these resources speaks volumes about their values and priorities. And right now, corporations are prioritizing enriching shareholders over investing in their workforce. This is evident in the disproportionate amount of money being funneled into stock buybacks rather than into the pockets of hardworking employees. Second, buybacks exacerbate the already massive wealth gap. The wealth gap is the disparity in assets and income between the richest and the poorest in society. When stock prices go up, it's primarily the wealthy who benefit, as they own the lion's share of stocks. The top 10% of households own over 80% of the stock market, meaning that the gains from buybacks are heavily skewed towards the rich. Meanwhile, the average worker, who is more likely to have their money tied up in things like, a roof over their head or food on the table, gets left behind. They don't see the same benefits from rising stock prices because they don't own significant amounts of stock. Think of it like this. Stock buybacks are like a giant vacuum cleaner, sucking up wealth from the bottom and redistributing it to the top. This creates a cycle where the rich get richer and the poor struggle to make ends meet. It's a reverse Robin Hood scheme, robbing the poor to pay the rich. Instead of redistributing wealth to create a more equitable society, buybacks concentrate wealth in the hands of a few. And the worst part, it's all perfectly legal. Despite the clear negative impacts on economic equality, stock buybacks are allowed and even encouraged by current financial regulations. This legal framework supports a system where corporate profits are prioritized over the well-being of the workforce. Section 5, Across the Pond, a glimpse at different priorities. Now, some might argue that stock buybacks are just a natural part of capitalism, but here's the thing, it doesn't have to be this way. Other developed countries have much stricter regulations on stock buybacks and prioritize things like worker rights, social safety nets, and long-term investment. In Germany, for example, workers have a voice on corporate boards, ensuring that their interests are represented in decision-making. In Scandinavian countries, strong social safety nets provide a cushion for those who fall on hard times. These countries understand that a healthy economy requires investing in people, not just profits. Section 6. Imagine a world investing in people, not just profits. Let's take a trip down an alternate timeline, shall we? Imagine if, instead of spending trillions on stock buybacks over the past few decades, corporations had invested that money in their employees and innovation. Imagine a world where wages kept pace with productivity, where workers had a say in how their companies were run, and where innovation wasn't just about finding new and exciting ways to extract wealth from consumers. Imagine a world where everyone had a fair shot at a decent life. Sounds pretty good, right? Now, back to reality. We can't change the past, but we can learn from it. It's time to stop prioritizing short-term profits over long-term prosperity. It's time to start investing in the people who make our economy run. Section 7, a call to action, reining in buybacks, rewriting the rules. So, what can we do about this? First and foremost, we need to get angry. This isn't just the way things are, it's a choice that's being made by corporations and the politicians they bankroll. We need to demand better. We need to push for policies that discourage stock buybacks and encourage long-term investment. We need to strengthen worker protections, raise the minimum wage, and make sure everyone has access to affordable healthcare and education. We need to level the playing field and create an economy that works for everyone, not just the wealthy few. Section 8. The future of prosperity, shared growth, not just shareholder returns. The choice is ours. We can continue down the path of unchecked corporate greed and widening inequality, or we can choose a different future. A future where prosperity is shared, where everyone has the opportunity to succeed, and where corporations are held accountable for their actions. The fight for a fairer economy won't be easy. It will require sustained effort, collective action, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. But it's a fight worth having, because the future of our country, our communities, and our children depends on it. Section 9. A final thought. It's time for a change. The system isn't broken, it's working exactly as designed. For those at the top, it's time to redesign it. It's time for a change. It's time to put people over profits. It's time to reclaim the promise of America. The time is now, let's do this.